This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, everyone, welcome. And I'll officially open the Southampton Planning Board meeting for November 2nd. November 2nd, 2022. This evening, we have all our members present, including Paul Fregoff, Cindy Palmer, Dan LaValle, and Sarah Stein, and myself. Paul and Cindy were not available for the last meeting. However, due to somebody's got some feedback.
I guess we'd ask people to mute if you were not speaking at the moment. There's a button for that so that we don't hear the feedback.
Thanks, Dan. Given that Paul and Cindy did review the videotape of the last meeting, and they are sending me verification to that effect, which is called the Mullen Rule. If you did not attend a previous meeting, you can view it. That was taped for the information. Therefore, they are up to speed on what took place at the last meeting and will be able to vote tonight. So all our members are present. We also have Joy Piper with us, the Select Board representative, liaison to the board, and we also have Richard Harris, Planning Board consultant. This is also televised on channel 191. So to begin tonight's agenda, this is a continuation of the public hearing that was held on October 19th, continued to this evening because of lack of information and some more clarification on some items. Permit was submitted by Doreen McKnight of 12 Rattle Hill Road for a ground mount solar panels under section 16 of the zoning bylaw. And it was duly advertised previously and the abutters were notified. So at this time, I'm going to ask Karen Robichaux from Divine Engineering.
Yeah, I'm here. Thomas is coming on right now as I speak. He's the head of design and I'm waiting for him. He got caught up with his kids. I apologize. Oh, there he is. There he is. So,
you want you get in.
Yeah, so Thomas has it, and I'm going to pull up the new site plan.
Thank you. So is Thomas on board now?
Thomas is on board.
Okay, Thomas, will you pick up where we left off? We had some questions the last meeting about there was boundary questions, how far the installation would be from all the boundary lines, front, side, rear, etc., and any other information that you are bringing forward tonight from the previous meeting. So go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Chairman, for the intro. And what we have addressed is that there was a major scope of work that was done by one of our surveying techs to plot something in the improper location. Then we deviated and we put this at an actual location that is correct on these plans. We downloaded the correct parcel maps and worked hard to get these numbers correct. So last meeting, we discussed about a side property setback that was depicted incorrectly. And on this plan, I believe we've got the superimposed GIS map on the exact parcel map from the latest book number that was on file with the Registry of Deeds. So
can you see it on screen? I'm sorry, I'm just.
Yes, okay. We can.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so without further ado, that property setback that we've all been waiting for is 79.2 feet. which I believe exceeds, all reasonable 35 feet marks, which is in the town bylaws. And we're much closer to the rear of the property down by the pond. So we're about 100 feet from the pond. We meet all frontage, sidage, and rear setbacks. And I believe this location is properly depicted and represented tonight.
Okay, you also received from me some submission document information and dimension and height requirements. Do you want to go over those, please?
Certainly, yep. The maximum height is not to exceed 15 feet on the bylaws. We have ensured that this ground mount is at a 25-degree angle and the rear height will not exceed 11 feet. And some of the other things were addressed about endangered species on this parcel. It currently doesn't have any Army Corps of Engineers, endangered species, or NEMA flood map interference. I'm on a meeting. Hold on. Sorry, guys. So we crossed off a few different things from your comments, and I believe, we addressed most of them. Are there any other ones that would be on top of mind?
Oh, but I'll have our consultant, if you don't have any more information to offer at this point, I'll ask Richard Harris, the board consultant, who brought up those requirements, and have him just ask you some questions along the way, please. Richard?
If you don't mind, let me just interject one more time. We did do some thorough research of the town bylaws. And in that respect, in regard, we saw that there was no small scale solar application. All of the guidelines that are written in these bylaws seem to be more geared towards commercial approval of systems in medium scale and intermediate scale and large scale, which showed a KW class of 16 or greater. This system is 8.8 kW, and those civil engineering requirements are more commonly found on those type of systems. And the bylaws read that way and didn't have anything specific for these small scale projects.
Thank you. The bylaw, as you state, is somewhat convoluted because it was adopted several years back, and we are in the process of reviewing those sometime in the near future here. But yes, there are some inconsistencies in it. But at this time, if you don't have anything further, I will ask Richard to chime in here, please. Richard?
First, if you could stop sharing screen so I can share the zoning bylaw. With all due respect, he is incorrect about what he said regarding the requirements in the zoning bylaw. If he can stop sharing, I can share the zoning bylaw and the board can see what is required. If you go to section 16, you'll see there's a section G. Site plan review is required for all small scale solar generating facilities. Subsection 1 under G is procedures. Subsection 2 under G is required submission required documents. Site plan subsection 2A is the site plan requirements. And that requires professional land surveyor or professional engineer licensed to practice in Massachusetts prepare plans. I don't disagree that this may not be common. I'm not sure. I haven't researched other bylaws, but this is what's in the zoning bylaw. And and details what's in here, what's required. As to these requirements, the board is empowered under subsection 5, G5 to grant waivers of any requirements under subsection G upon prior written request of the applicant. So the applicant could very well submit a letter, email to the board requesting a waiver of any of the submission requirements not addressed in the plan and accept the plan as submitted, as revised, as sufficient for the submission. The board could then grant that waiver doing so in writing as part of their decision. So, and I understand that CH and say site plan approval, the most convoluted thing is typically site plan approval is a stage in the site plan review process. Whoever wrote the Southampton zoning soda bylaw wrote it as site plan review is for small projects and site plan approval is for larger ones. That's not commonly done. So that's...
Well, appreciate all of the insights there. And we certainly have been working with Paul to address some of these concerns that were written down today. And I believe, with any reasonable efforts, we tried to make certain of some of the basic ones, which, proving that the land survey was accurate to the book and deeds, proving that the site plan actually was stamped by an engineer. We just didn't have the sync up of what was required in this submission, and providing some of these additional things that, typically are for 1,300 square feet or greater. So I believe, we made some reasonable efforts to do that. We just didn't formally call it a waiver. And we're here to really abide by all the procedures and laws and things to make all the submission process go as streamlined as possible. So today, we were learning what that submission process was a little bit late in the game. And we have tried to address most of these with our current revisions. So if anybody would like to recommend a pathway forward, we are certainly amenable to hear that.
John DeFonte.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. We're not finished with the consultant.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In the board comments, I will ask the public for their comments in a little bit. So
sure.
Please hold on. Thank you. Richard, continue on that and the path forward.
The path forward would be very simple for the applicant to submit an email to you, to the board, stating what I said, requesting a waiver of the accepting the plan as meeting the submission requirements and granting a waiver for any items that may be omitted from it.
So can we act on this evening, or do we have to wait for that submittal, or it's we have days to write the decision, do we not?
You have until December 2nd to file the decision with the town clerk. You have to receive the request in writing before you act on the application. No.
And the action would have to take place at a formal meeting, correct?
Yes.
Right.
And I assume you're going to meet December 1st. So you have one meeting scheduled, another meeting scheduled already in November, and then have a meeting December 1st if that became absolutely necessary. But
yeah, we are meeting the 19th or the 16th. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else from your perspective, Richard?
No, I'll just note that I did submit to the chair a checklist of the criteria that the board, the zoning bylaw provides. I would encourage the board to go through the checklist item by item in making their determination of approval. I think you'll find that based on the information they provided, that it would be appropriate for acting on it. I did note that the last meeting, the board also asked about screening plans. I'm not sure the board's going to finds that the distance is acceptable, or if the board wants to have some type of low bushes planted to.
Well, that is also always a possibility, and after listening to the public, I think we can then better understand how we should deal with it going forward. So are you all set, Richard, for the time being?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I'm going to ask
Paul,
just a minute, Cindy. I'm going to ask now for the board to ask questions of either Richard or the representative from Devlin, Stu Winkowski. any questions. So go ahead, Cindy.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought you were going to go to the public. So my question is, what is it specifically that the applicant would want to request a waiver for? That's the part that's not clear to me. What is it, because of location, or what aspects require a waiver?
I didn't see anywhere on the plans a stamp and signature of either a professional land surveyor or a professional engineer. That may be on the revised plans. I haven't looked at those detailed. If I can share another item, let's see.
That would not be the item that we're looking for a waiver for. The current files and submissions would be something that we would be asking that if they're sufficient, using the book numbers of the existing land surveys that are on file in the Book of Deeds. And then our civil engineer has reviewed the plan and stamped off on that. That's pretty standard.
Wasn't the plan that you had up on the screen originally, didn't I see that revised plan was stamped?
That particular page of it was not. However, that civil engineer was reviewing it concurrently and was going to basically provide that in a day's time. We just didn't have it for our submission tonight.
Okay, so that's on the list.
So that is not a problem. That wasn't going to be the waiver. Particularly when you ask for screening, we more likely would ask for a waiver of a registered architect providing like a civil screening plan or something like that. We would look for a couple of different things, but we did address a few of these notes, pretty much all of these notes, and we were working on this morning, Paul, and we would like to show you that we have addressed these key issues. So I think there's very little that we would ask for any type of omission.
Paul, can I step in here and ask a couple key questions that I think haven't been really addressed?
Go ahead.
So the site plans itself, they look very schematic in nature, where they don't seem to really meet the intent of the bylaw with the category that this falls in, which is a small scale ground mount, which is what this would fall under based on.
Before you go any further, Paul, I have a hard copy, and probably Tom could bring it up too if he wanted to, but there was a whole packet that was delivered with all kinds of information about the system and the layout and the specs, probably about 10 pages long. I'm sure that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is a plan that shows the proposed layout of the system as it relates to a surveyed plan or engineer stamp plan that shows how that all is set in place to satisfy the requirements. So,
can you go back and bring that up and share the screen, or Richard, can you?
Karen, if you don't mind, you can share.
I think what Paul forgot is getting to is item A3. Basically, we talked about the changes in the site, including grading, vegetation clearing.
There are zero changes in grading or elevation.
Height, including height and placement system, those type of things which you normally see on a site plan.
So height and placement of system is just, you need to be familiar with our typical plan, and it shows a side elevation of the ground mount with height requirements of the front, the rear, and all the different types of helical pile plan. That is included in that full set of plans.
Can Karen bring up any of that?
Yeah, Karen, if you go to the plans that we looked at this morning, you'll see now. So the one that's imposed on the Mass Mapper Oliver GIS database, that's 2 scale with all proper setbacks. Then there's the solar foundation side elevation plan that shows all the details of height requirements on the rear of the array, front, side pitches. I mean, as far as, these go, this is typically no bigger than a shed in your yard, and most people have a site setback that's no further away from the property line than it is tall. So, some departments consider it to be that, and some departments to consider it to be full commercial scale requirements. So I'm in another zoning hearing right now for a 2,600 square foot array, and that has full architectural plans, and it seems more like what you guys are asking for. So,
all right, which page do you want, Thomas? I have the plan set up now.
So the one that shows the actual image that's in color. That's
not that one.
That one. Yep. Oh, up that one.
Got the wrong plan.
Mass mapper one. Go down one page.
Nope.
That one there.
Okay.
The one that's got like the actual earth on it.
It was the original one, Karen.
No, you're on it. Just go up, Karen. That one is to scale with all of the assessor's database, updated property lines. We found an updated book parcel map that was on file.
Is that the one there?
You're not sharing.
Well, I apologize. I'm trying.
Oh, man.
Take your time, Karen. I know we're...
There we go. That one?
So you're going to be looking for the first one you shared that has the side setbacks, front setbacks, the yellow writing.
There's the second page, Thomas.
That's the one with the, yep, that's the one. No, it's on the screen right now.
All right, Paul, any questions on that from your point?
Yeah, it's several questions.
Go ahead.
One, this is not a stamped plan that identifies boundaries or its actual spot that's stamped.
That's correct. So this portion of the project was not stamped, and this is the 2-scale drawing that identifies all boundaries. We do have a stamped plan that we were working with Paul on before this meeting that just didn't get done before the submission deadline.
So we can't really approve anything then if that plan's not.
We're going to drag this on over. Unbelievable.
So this is to scale. The only thing it doesn't have is a stamp on it. So we're formally going to submit a stamped plan, but this is the registry of deeds, parcel map, book data, all the specific requirements to scale with the exact details on it.
So there's more issues here. So with this thing, there was a mention in the last hearing about the pond that's there. And someone mentioned that that's not a jurisdictional pond. Can you please, if you have something to say, can you please mute? It's the board's time. And I would respect, and I think everybody else in this room would respect not getting feedback, please. Thank you. In terms of this plan, there was something that was incorrectly stated. In terms of the pond that's there, that is a jurisdictional review that the Conservation Commission would have, where if you're within a certain amount of feet, that is an RDA, request for determination of applicability, which typically would be done if you're within a certain amount of distance. Based on
we
what
are
you
over
have,
the 100-foot boundary from this.
right, but you don't have a stamp plan that says that. So that's one thing that, you know, I see an issue with this. The other thing is, which was sort of discussed earlier, I'm sure it's going to be brought up again, but in terms of the sight lines, it's an open sight line from what it appears to be from the street. And a planting plan would be great if you could provide one. However, based on what I've seen in the past, we've let that up to the property owner and not really to someone who knew what they were doing. And I can share my screen. If you can stop sharing, please. I'll show you what you get instead when you don't ask for appropriately detailed plan. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
It's what do you see right now? It's just my background, or do you see my?
I'm looking at the zoning bylaw right now.
Perfect. So 46 Fulmer, I drive by this on a regular occasion. This was a PV front yard mounted unit that was put in. We left it up to the property owner to put up some sort of landscaping to cover it from the street. I don't know how many years this has been up already growing, but bottom line is you can see it's probably an eyesore to the neighbors, and driving by it's probably not all that attractive to see. I just want to make sure that's something that's not going to be created with your site as it's being proposed, because it seems like, you know, we're hearing a lot of stuff that you're going to do, but it hasn't been really provided. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Paul. Cindy or Dan or Sarah?
I can't think of any specific questions. I did go by that property today to look at it and try to figure out where this was going to be. Of course, I didn't have the updated site plan. There is kind of a gradual decline from the road. Am I right about that? That it's kind of, yeah. And,
Yep.
And I do think that in terms of what we in the town of Southampton want and the planning board is expected to provide it, is something that is going to be attractive enough for everyone driving by, and also for the abutters, the neighbors, et cetera. So I think one thing that comes to my mind is it would be a good idea to understand whatever the screening plan is going to be, as I think the point Paul was just making. That's it for me.
I don't have anything additional.
I had a question of, I know last time we spoke that there were some markers indicating the proposed location so that the abutters were able to see that on the property. Were those markers moved as you had resurveyed?
The markers were removed. The markers were removed pending the discussions in this final location planning and what we needed to resolve here, because the location was subject to change.
So is there currently something that from the street showing where this panel assembly would be installed?
There is not.
What? It's on the first plan, wasn't that?
That would be like an overhead view, but I meant like seeing the actual mark out. He's asking if the site is currently marked so somebody can drive by and actually visualize what it is. And if that's the case, the bylaws should request a formal submission of a picture from the street, and then we could have met that requirement in advance. But asking for it now as a requirement is a little tough to commit to.
Well,
correct. Those original markings with the yellow markings and whatever were wrong, so they were removed when we redid our plans.
That's what I was really trying to understand, because you had put these flags up, which had caused a lot of discussion with your neighbors. So I was curious as to if you were planning on putting those markers back up so that it could be something to resolve any issues with them, or if you're not planning on doing so.
We're absolutely planning on doing so. And I wish in advance, we could have that great discussion and have everybody happy with that at this hearing. But thank you for bringing that up as a good suggestion to, conquer that and make it more of a specific discussion.
Mm-hmm. So you're right. Yeah, our bylaw does not say, yes, you have to provide a photograph of that. But since you had it up before and it did cause a lot of discussion, it may be worthwhile to have that, put them back up so the discussion can be clarified.
I appreciate the advice, and we certainly plan on doing that in the immediate future.
That's all I had to say.
If there are no more questions from the board at this point, I'm going to open it up to the public. Who would like to speak first?
I'd like to say anything.
Who do I have that would like to speak first?
Hi, John DeFonte.
What's your address, John?
Hi, how are you tonight?
What's your address, John?
At 90 Russellville Road. I own 14 Rattle Hill Road.
Okay.
Just looking at that site plan, I can tell you that it's going to obstruct my view from my house. I setback is probably close to where your setback is on that. It's 10 to 15 feet high. There's nothing I can put to hide that thing. You only allow me to put a 6-foot fence up. I mean, I think it should go more behind their house. It's unsightly from the road. And I don't know, someone brought to my attention that this is a scenic area.
Oh my God.
Well,
look at the dump beside my house. There's a dump beside my house. It's on 11 Rattle Hill Road.
Let's not get out of hand with comments. We all will have them. We'll give you a turn, okay?
Unbelievable. Scenic.
Well, on that, I would disagree. That's just nature. That's just grass growing and nature growing on that side. That's kind of what I bought that land for, is for the nature and the beauty of it. And I think that's why it was designated a scenic area. I think people were very concerned about preserving that area and keeping it that nice. That's really why I bought that land, because of the beauty of the land. And you're going to put a structure, which is a commercial structure, next to my house. I don't find that acceptable at all. I mean, we're talking about seeing it from the road. I'm going to open my windows and see that every day. I think that's very unfair.
Now, are you, Mr. DePonte, are you adjacent to her across the street?
Right aside of her. I bought that property from her.
Right. So there's an open lot there, correct?
That's me.
Right. So there's no house on it right now, correct?
No. Okay. But I do have a accepted septic system plan showing where the house is. And I'll bet you it's very close to where your setback is now.
But are the plans to build, or have you got it?
No, I don't have a plan to build.
Okay.
No, I don't plan on building right now.
Okay. Thank you for that information.
But now, what about this scenic area? Now, the papers I have here say that was declared a scenic area and should have special attention taken in making these type of decisions.
There is a scenic designation on several roads in Southampton. However, I do not believe, and Mr. Harris can chime in if he wishes to, that prevent any private landowners from building. Probably, certainly not within the town right of way on either side of Rattle Hill Road. But Mr. Harris, is there any restrictions for the scenic road designation.
Let me share the screen real quick. That'll address that. This section from state law regarding scenic roadway designation. And you'll note in the second paragraph that after a road has been designated a scenic road, repair, maintenance, reconstruction, or paving work done with respect to the roadway shall not involve or include cutting or removal of trees or the tearing down or destruction of stone walls or portions thereof. There's nothing here that says anything about work outside the roadway. Even, in fact, as long as it's not touching the roadway, the law doesn't apply. Having said that, unless the town has adopted a local bylaw that gives additional protections that I'm not aware of, then the designation of scenic road will not impact work off outside the right of way.
Thank you. Ms. McKnight, you want to comment, please?
Asking what the fascination of looking in our backyard is.
I would like to know the fascination of looking in our backyard, either from across the street or the side where we have people with binoculars looking in our backyard. I don't know what the fascination is there. They see more in my backyard than I do. I have never had a problem with my neighbors until all of a sudden I've decided to put solar in, which is more cost effective for me. And this is the wave of the future. I'm not trying to put up something that's horrendous. Commercial. I would put it on my roof, but I can't because I have a lifetime warranty on a metal roof that would disregard that warranty. Not trying to make enemies. And I've been here almost 50 years. I've been in town another 9 years, only in another part of town. And all of a sudden, I've got a stampede of people that are opposed to what I'm doing. And as far as the man building a house beside me, he's owned that piece of land for about 9 years.
Since 2007.
Since 2007. I sold it to him. I did not ask my neighbors if I should sell it or not to him, but they were right down here in that piece of property talking to him. So I don't know what's going on. All I want to do is put something on my property that's going to make it more cost effective for us to stay here. And the price of utilities is going up, and I'm not here to cause a problem. I like Southampton. I've been here a long time, and I would do anything for this town, but I don't know how to make my neighbors happy. Now these are people I walked with. These are people I've saved their kids' lives. And now they're making a big issue. I don't know. I understand. I guess you.
You're speaking from the heart, certainly, and you have every right to
thank you.
Have solar if you wish. Just we want to make sure that it's done in conformance with the
right.
bylaws and make it as less intrusive on the scenic roadway or the people that.
Yes, I agree. I really do want to keep it as, I would like to keep the town as scenic as possible. I mean,
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Leonard Sudnick, 15 Rattle Hill Road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is considered a scenic area, and I'd like to remind the young lady that no one is against this solar system being put up. Nobody. It's the location, and where it was supposed to be put up. This is designated a scenic area, and it also says here, therefore, it appears that protection of the scenic designation needs to be better enforced by municipal officials, and identification of this designation along the road could help inform residents of the road's recognized scenic quality. It's a scenic, and it is a designated scenic area, and it says state legislatures, municipal employees should enforce it a little bit. We do not want to stop Mrs. McKnight from putting on a solar system. It is the exact position of where it is. It's offensive out in a beautiful field.
But it's her property, Mr. Sudnick.
Yes, it is.
Private property. The scenic road designation was just explained a moment ago.
Yes, I understand.
And if the town wishes to enforce it to go onto private property, then that should go to the select board for further review, and maybe they can develop a bylaw to do that. But right now, that scenic designation does not prevent this solar panels from happening.
We're not against the solar panels. We just like to have it put a little more to the right.
What you may want is what the property owners do not want. And it probably is a good reason where they don't want it directly behind their house, because it could interfere possibly with the way the sun hits those panels and shade gets on it, just like trees do. So there's a reason they put it there.
Okay.
John DeFonte again.
Yes.
Those panels are going to be right in my scenic area. I mean, you can't not look at them if you open a window on that side of my house. It just can't happen.
But there's not a house there yet, Mr. DePonte, correct?
But there's going to be a house there, and that's going to depreciate the property value of that house.
Correct. There's not. We have to remember that the homeowner is entitled to do this.
Anyone else have anything new to add to the discussion?
This is Mr. Sudnick again. Mm-hmm. If it goes up, I would like to have at least some kind of shrubbery around it, or like a wall or something, and before it even starts. And I want the approval of the owner of the property that this will be done. It will add to the beauty and everything else. And even you people.
We are discussing that, and it's our purview to condition that if we must, because it's already been discussed and it'll be further discussed, given the neighbors' concerns about this.
Well, John DeFonte again. If they are approved, I would very much want some type of thing there. I mean, even the commercial solar fields, they're trying to hide these things. They're not sightly. They're ugly looking things, and I understand the use for them, and I hope McKnight's do find a place on their property. The other thing is the electric company said that can work anywhere on her property. He didn't say there was any area that it wouldn't work on his property. So if you have people that are opposed to it, why don't we look at other places on the property instead of
I'm sorry, that's not for you to decide.
I'm not trying to decide it. I'm making suggestions only.
It's the property owner has hired a company to do this design for them, and that's where the property owner choose to have it, and that's kind of a moot point at this point.
So if it devalues my property, it doesn't make a difference.
I would question that it will devalue your property. Any other information that we need? If not, we're going to continue with the conditions and the information we need to continue this again.
I would just like to ask one more question, if I could. We also have a petition here with almost 50 names on it. That means nothing to the town?
Mr. Devande, it regarding the scenic road designation, and we've already covered that. Had someone probably read the scenic road designation definition prior to that, getting those signatures, someone might have saved a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chairman. And we've totally planned to address Richard and Paul's comments and all of the board's comments on the next site plan review.
Let's go down and make a list here so we're sure to get what we're looking for. Richard, would you pick up again on this, please, so I can catch my breath?
Well, I've already suggested to planning boards is to go through the review criteria because that will lead you to determine what additional information you need in order to make a determination that meets all the requirements. And so I can share with you the checklist that I developed. Requires minimization of the number of removed trees, 10 inches or larger. My understanding, there's no trees in the area that they're proposing to be in. Minimize length of removed stone walls, similar case. Area of redland vegetation displaced. Paul raised the issue that it may be within the Conservation Commission jurisdiction. I believe it was said that the revised plan was based on the online Oliver system. That's not a survey. And so therefore there could be some discrepancies on that. So I'm not sure how you want that addressed. It'd be best to have a surveyor to actually go out there and survey the property and survey the pond and location of the proposed panels. Minimize the extent of stormwater flow, increase in the site. Again, that gets into topography and that's going to be graded off. Maximize pedestrian vehicle safety. I don't think that's an issue. Minimize obstruction of scenic views from publicly accessible locations. That's up the board side if you want to have them establish some type of screening for it.
We'll address that after you finish.
Minimize visual intrusion by controlling the visibility of parking. There's no parking, there's no storage or other outdoor service areas associated with this. Minimize obstruction of view, minimize glare from headlights or light trespass. Minimize unreasonable departure from the character, materials, and scale of buildings in the area in the vicinity as viewed from public ways. Prevent contamination of groundwater from operation. I'm not sure that's a relevant issue for this. Ensure compliance with the provisions of the zoning bylaw, including parking, landscaping. Ensure adequate access to each structure for fire. I think that's probably addressed as well. But
I don't know.
If you want to show that on screen, yeah.
I do not know.
No. And this is the approval criteria here. This is taken straight from the zoning bylaw itself. And I'm not sure. There's a subparagraph A I broke up into 5 different items because it's difficult to read otherwise. So I'm not sure how you want to go about doing this, but I would suggest the board may want to take a few minutes to determine if they feel that each of these are satisfied or if there's additional information needed to make that determination.
I think that's a good idea.
I think a lot of these are not applicable, but there's definitely a couple things. So do we want to just run through them?
Sarah, why don't you run down the list for us, please, then?
Okay. Looks like, Richard, you addressed the first 3, which, so minimize the volume of cut and fill.
Not applicable.
It seems like they've done that. It's just simple foundations. Trees we discussed. Length of removed stone walls, that's not applicable. Wetland vegetation, not applicable. Extent of stormwater flow increase from the site. It's no real new impervious. Everything that would flow off these panels just flows onto more grass. I don't see that as an issue.
Hold on. Sarah, hold on. The wetland vegetation.
You're breaking up, Paul. You're breaking up.
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that pond be, I mean, that's a wetland.
So they'd have to confirm distance. It's 100 feet, right? So confirm it's 100 feet greater than 100 feet from the wetland.
Right. And that's got to be stamped.
Right.
Okay.
They need a surveyor out there to survey the pond, survey where they can put it, and stamp the plan that shows that.
Yeah, I think that's.
This is a man-made pond. So is that the same condition with a man-made pond?
It's still a wetland.
Yeah.
So if someone chooses to put a pond on their property, conservation then gets jurisdiction over it?
Yes, it's called it's a replication. It could be a replication. It could be, it's triggered by the bylaws or it's triggered by the Conservation Commission. And
it's interesting that makes sense.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
Go ahead.
The pond actually is, right now, has no water in it. The pond is overflow from our well. The pond was there when I moved here. It is now dry. So whatever overflow comes from our well is what would go in the pond, which is not there anymore. It's an open area, like where the pond used to be. So I don't know.
Should be noted, wetlands is not determined by presence of water, but by vegetation for the most part. So you need to have somebody out there that understands wetland vegetation and survey that and see where those located. And then talk to Conservation Commission whether or not they consider a jurisdictional.
Yeah, it seems a little bit over the top for such a project of this size. It really shouldn't check those boxes, especially when it's outside the wetland buffer. So we shouldn't even involve anybody unless we're inside the wetland buffer.
Yeah.
Then I would suggest that when you resubmit, you ask for that waiver.
Do I have to do it?
Thank you, Chairman. We will absolutely make note of that.
Thank you.
Sarah, you want to continue?
Sure. I guess my opinion on the stormwater was that this doesn't really increase erosion or anything. Anybody else's opinion on that one?
Agreed.
Pedestrian vehicular safety, that's not applicable.
I just have one question on stormwater. So the flow of the site is away from the roadway, away from the property lines, onto their property, totally?
That's what it appears.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
There's no topo. That's why I just need to have that clarified. Want to be sure that everything is draining onto their property because the panels will alter the flow otherwise.
Okay.
We were told it was descending, so from the roadway down to where these panels are being installed.
And the panels are also facing the house, which is going to be flowing toward the house more than anything.
Okay. Obstruction of scenic views from publicly accessible locations. That's, of course, what we've largely been talking about. So I guess that's something that comes back to plantings, which is still something we need to have on the list, I suppose, for discussion at this point.
Yeah, and I think the thing to point out here is the publicly accessible locations. So not necessarily abutting properties view is what they're talking about here. They're talking about from the road.
Correct.
So
I agree with that reading.
Yep.
So minimize visual. So I don't know, Richard, since this is on yours, is there a way for you to mark this up as we go that, things we need to come back to? I just meant.
I'm making notes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So minimize visual intrusion by controlling the visibility of parking, storage, other outdoor service. This isn't really, we're really talking about one thing, with no real ancillary equipment to it. Minimize glare from headlights. There's no driving, there's no driveway. That's not applicable. Minimize unreasonable departure from character, material, scale of buildings in the vicinity is viewed from public ways and places. That really comes back to obstruction of scenic views. It's all kind of one. So of course that's on the list, but that's that one.
Right, no, I think there's a key term in there, unreasonable departure. So it can be a departure, just so it's not grossly unreasonable.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
One thing on E is not only worried about headlights, but concerned from the angle of the sun versus these panels. If there's any danger to any of the drivers on the road, I'd have to draw it all out.
Yeah.
But
there should be zero impact and glare from refraction. I mean, this is facing downhill towards the pond, away from where most things could reasonably interfere with it.
Makes sense.
G, hazardous substances. My understanding is this has no chemicals or anything of the sort. Ensure compliance with the provisions of the zoning bylaw, including parking and landscaping. There's no parking. Landscaping has to do with the scenic or the view, which we will discuss. Adequate access to each structure for fire and service equipment, utilities and stormwater. I don't think that's really applicable here. Is there anything else on the list, Richard? That's the bottom of the page here.
No, that's it.
Okay. I think this was a good exercise, but it really does just all seem to come back to confirming the location with a survey and then discussing if they're, screening or plantings. That's really what from my opinion, it seems to come to.
Okay. So now that we're there, let's have some discussion about that. Now, Tom, the panels face south?
Panels face south, and they meet all of the setbacks from frontage, sidage, rearage, and all the criterias of your shed building criteria and those categories.
All right. So if we were to screen this from the abutting property and the roadway, we're talking northwest?
Talking northwest, and you're talking 10-foot tall arborvitaes or something like that.
And that's what we have done in the past down the road. I remember some installations that we did that too. So board, Paul, Dan, and Sarah, Cindy, what's your thoughts?
So if these mountings are you said the northwest, right? Then what is the impact on the ability of these panels to produce solar electricity? Will it be shading those panels, or will this just be a cosmetic change?
So with a reasonable standoff, you're talking 10 feet, maybe less. The northwest window should never see any shading impact from it. However, it is a cost prohibitive addition to the project.
Given the public sentiment, though, that's something that we can't avoid.
I agreed, Paul, and we're all looking for a solution here. So if that's the solution, or if there is one other, I would look for some other solution other than screening, in addition to screening, that might work.
Well, you've got the alternative, I suppose, of a fence, but I would think for those concerned with scenic visibility, a fence might be a little bit more intrusive than the arborvitae.
Agreed. So I would consider that as if the homeowners would be considerate of that. And if anyone can think of any other contributing things that would make screening or a adjustment plan for a happy location adjustment, we certainly want to do that, but we want to be concerned about, even though the pond is a dry pond, we want to make sure that we're considerate of the conservation aspect of wetlands.
Any other ideas on screening, or is that what we're going to request?
My only question would be, Ms. McKnight, if you had a preference or plan in mind for any plantings.
No.
I haven't at this point, but I guess I'm just taken back by this being such an issue. I mean, we've had other plantings on our property, but I'm hoping that this would resolve the problems that we're having with our neighborhood now. But like I say, we're downhill from neighbors that look across with binoculars, so they'll see the panel anyway. But people that build beside us, if they want to put up something so they don't see it, by all means, let them put up something. But it's at 74, this is to be cost effective for me to live in this house and for me to start having to bring all this stuff in, landscaping in, just to have a solar panel put near my house. It's not cost effective. Now you got older people that live in town that can't afford to live here because of the cost of the utilities, and they're looking for something that's coming. I mean, we need to look at the environment and everything that goes around it. I mean, you can see trees in my backyard, but someday the way the environment is going, you're not going to have a tree to look at. I mean, I've had neighbors complain because the pines are growing up behind with the woods, and I don't even own that piece of land because they can't see up the mountain. When I bought it, you could see up the mountain, but I don't own that.
So you
Ms. McKnight's correct, and the utilities are all toting a 65% increase. This for National Grid. It's terrible, but we will work with Ms. McKnight on a screening plan, but we are asking the board to consider the downhill aspect and the topography and who is actually visually impacted. Really? And we are meeting all the setback requirements for this particular project. And it really is not considered an eyesore. In this day of technology and age, everybody is going to consider solar. Everybody is going to need this. Everybody on this call is going to be impacted by the rising rates and the changing to electric vehicles. She's just doing the right thing, and we're just trying not to be blocked by bureaucracy.
Richard?
I would just offer a couple of comments. That one, when you look at screening, typically you look at chest high view, 5 foot, 6 foot high at most view. You're not looking at somebody 20 foot off the ground looking at it. So you're not looking at second floor view. You're looking at a living room view typically of it. And I don't think you need to look at densely planted vegetation, recognizing that arborvitaes, you mentioned arborvitaes, they grow rapidly and they will fill in. And it's not a solid wall of array you're looking at. They're laid out. So I think that those are factors that can be and should be taken consideration. And if they have a landscape architect, I'm sure the landscape architect come up with a very nice, simple, cost-effective way of providing some screening.
We're not all blessed with having those on staff, Richard, but we'll try to make it work.
John DeFonte again, and I think it'd be pretty unfair to put that up without hiding that with some type of plantings. Again, I think it's close to my house. It's definitely going to be in my scenic view. It's not what I bargained for.
Mr. DeFonte, we really do understand your opinion. And at this point, we're not asking for public comment right now. The board's discussing something. We do understand, okay, and we have heard you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So Tom and Karen, you have the list that's been put forward. So would you like to meet back on this on the 16th, or is that going to give you enough time? If not, December 5th.
I propose that we can get it done before the 16th with all reasonable efforts. And
I do agree with you, Thomas.
And what we'll aim to do is provide a marking visually at the site so that there is something there for anybody future to discuss at that hearing. We will address all the comments of the board and the committee and provide all reasonable efforts to resolve the screening and the things. And we will put a formal letter in if there are any things that we need to omit from that submission. But we appreciate everybody's time and comments on helping us get through this, and the McKnights and the public, as well as the board.
Richard?
Mr. Chairman, I'll note the board's deadline for filing a decision with the town clerk is December 2nd. You have 45 days from the date of the first meeting at which the matter was considered or on the agenda. Therefore, if it's not resolved on the 16th, then the only way it can go beyond that would be if the applicant submit a letter authorizing an extension of that deadline to a date certain and the board approved it. So it's mutually agreeable, and that is filed to the town clerk.
Thank you for that, Richard.
So if everything is in order by the 16th, I'm reasonably sure we can come to a decision at that point.
We need to have a written decision for the 2nd.
Mm-hmm. And that's correct. We'll have everything submitted by the 16th.
Well, I think before the 16th, we should do that. And then we will discuss with Paul if we need any adjustments. Okay.
Correct. Right. We'll be in touch with Paul and the McKnights, and we will have everything properly submitted by the 16th.
Thank you very much.
Good evening to all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was pretty much the only thing on the agenda.
You can shut that down.
For formal business anyways. Anybody got anything else they would like to add, either committee reports or updates on anything? Cindy?
I have a couple of questions and announcements. Just, you all know that there's going to be a special town meeting on December 15th, 7 p.m. Norris School. And I know that there's going to be bylaws on there, and there's going to be CPC things on the warrant, et cetera. I'm sure other things. Are we able to get any of our bylaws that we've been working on onto that special town meeting, or is that not possible? We're not ready.
No. Richard?
No, that right at this point in time, we've given the general code the stuff, and they're incorporating that into the E-code, and it'll be taken care of as part of that package.
And that'll happen hopefully in the regular annual town meeting.
Spring, yes. The annual.
Okay, great.
So the board would need to hold a public hearing on that sometime probably in February or March.
Okay, super. Great, thanks. Next, a question came to me by somebody regarding what our planning board has done or is doing for complete streets. I know this came up before, and I know I've missed a lot of meetings, and I apologize for that. It's turned out to be that the first meeting of the month was canceled, and the second meeting of the month was not convenient to me with my schedule. But what's the status of the planning board looking at anything regarding complete streets? I think Paul brought up something about that, Paul Fergal, a while ago.
Yeah, so I presented the select board several weeks ago, probably a couple months ago, actually.
I think I was there that night, yep.
Right. So the board had some concerns about what limitations the requirements put on the Mass DOT requirements associated with the complete streets funding on the community. And I did a little bit of research. I had the information already kind of compiled. Basically, I need to present that information alongside top to Randall to discuss some of his concerns, particularly from things that he's required to do from a impact to his maintenance dollars, as well as Chapter 90 funding that he has. Just to fill the board in on the general concern, he and some other folks in the past town administrator made a statement about let's say he's looking to repave a roadway that has been funded historically through Chapter 90. And let's say the cost of a repaving job is $400,000 to do, I don't know, a mile of road or whatever. He's got a schedule and a budget set in place to do X amount of roadway every single year. If he's forced to add sidewalk construction to that particular program of his that he has using Chapter 90, if he's required to do it, then that obviously eats away from his budget and his roadway side of improvements. Well, the good news is that there's nothing in there that prevents you from just doing the roadway as part of your typical maintenance. It's something that you're not bound to do. It's very loose. However, the one thing that it does give us an opportunity to look at is reestablishing what our cross section looks like on the roadway, particularly how wide the roadway width is, where we put sidewalks. But then more importantly, we in return can get $400,000 a year from the state to construct a roadway, not a roadway, but sidewalks or pedestrian improvements, crosswalks, put up a rapid flashing beacon if we think there's a safety concern at a particular crossing. There's also technical assistance that can be funded initially. I forget the up to number, but Richard, it's like $27,000 or something like that, $30,000?
It varies. We use PVPC to do we use them along with Fussell and Neal to do the Complete Streets Plan in South Hadley. And right. then we got like a $400,000 grant to upgrade Lamb Street and part of Bridge, including placing an outdated signal system.
Right. So I did that for the youth that passes other communities in terms of, creating the term we use in the engineering world is book job, where we provide very little application plans to basically procure a unit bid cost that the contractor would pay for construction. Basically, you cut out the engineer as much as you can without spending, thousands of dollars on design. But in some cases, when you have right-of-way limitations, that's where you do want to identify where those right-of-way limits are so you don't encroach onto private property. I'll be frank right now, $400,000 is, obviously we know it's worth less and less every year. Right? I know it's kind of a large-scale statement to make, but the sooner we put it in there, maybe if we can utilize other town funds that we have to help us, get somewhere with some sidewalk connections, I think that would be a great goal to meet. The next deadline, unfortunately, is September 1st. So we have plenty of time to submit the application for the approval. So that means between now and then, the town needs to accept a prioritization plan or prioritization policy that the select board, I believe, would execute. I've seen various mechanisms, Rich, on that end.
The first step is adoption of the complete street policy and submission of that to Mass DOT for their approval. Once you get that, then you get authorization to apply what they call step 2, which is the prioritization plan. You can get a grant, technical assistance grant to fund that. And then once that gets approved, then you can apply for a complete streets implementation grant.
Right. So we have some time to hopefully get this in place by September 1st of next year. But I'm planning on providing this discussion to the select board in the near future.
Okay. So, Paul, the inquirer was Chris Falls, the chair of the select board. So I'm glad to hear that one part. I think she's looking for at least an update from, and then eventually to the select board. It does strike me from what anybody, either you or Richard, are saying is this doesn't require planning board action. This is really select board action. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in that case, getting back to the select board I think everybody's got a lot of enthusiasm for this. This is a great opportunity for our town. So it's just a case of what are the steps and who has to take care of it. So
let me clarify one thing. It's correct that it doesn't require planning board activity. However, if the select board does adopt the complete streets policy and DOT approves it, the board should look at their subdivision regulations and other regulations to ensure that they support the complete streets policy and they don't detract from it. That means looking at the right of way, looking at the sidewalk requirements, those type of things. That's something that you shouldn't do if the complete streets policy goes into effect.
So Paul Demon, do we need to ask you about authorizing Richard to look at those things and giving the planning board an up? No, we don't. You're shaking your head.
Not yet. Okay. Not until the policy is adopted and approved by Mass DOT.
Okay. After. Okay. Eventually the planning board has to approve moving forward on this after it's accepted by Mass DOT.
Right. Okay. I also want to know one other thing. There's a number of grants. I believe Mass Works is one of them that they ask if you have a complete streets policy and prioritization plan, and if your project is consistent with that, and that can help you get other funding for other projects too. So I think that's an important consideration.
Great. That answered my question. I don't know if you have more to say on that.
Richard, I have a question for you. I've seen multiple policy acceptance in our town government. Is that a select board vote?
That's my understanding, yes. And I will also know one thing, that as somebody I was inquiring about the park grant program deadline for next year, and the person in the state that runs it said the deadline will probably be in July unless the new administration changes. So that's one thing with any grant program, anything you have to recognize, we're all going to have new administration in January, and we have to track and see. They probably won't change anything substantial in the first year or two, and that's usually the best time to get into these programs.
Do you have any other information, committee reports, etc.?
I have another question unrelated to all that. So, Paul, I did see the email that came through from the individual who wishes to have approval from the bank to build on that property on East Street, the Canton property. And then I saw your letter. And I also remember there was an email from a member of the Board of Appraisers regarding the fact that that's still in Chapter 61, that land. The original project went away. If you recall, we all reviewed that a year or so ago, and they took it out of chapter, but then it went back into chapter. So I don't know if, I know because I was not at the meeting, that the planning board did approve 3 A&Rs, but there still has to be another step. So my question specifically is this: who is responsible for notifying probably the landowner or the landowner's representative to say action is needed to remove that from chapter and all the process that's involved with that? That's my question.
Well, I would expect it's the Board of Assessors.
Board of Assessors, I meant to say. Okay, right. So it's not, planning board doesn't have anything to do with it, but it's still in Chapter 61.
We approved it, Mark. I can't remember the conversation now, but
if it's in Chapter 61, when they try to build on it, they should be stopped because they can't build on under 61. Their attorney should have taken care of that early on. They're supposed to take. They should have. The attorney should have taken care of that before the A&Rs were endorsed, submitted.
I trust the legal work, and Heritage Surveys wouldn't have brought it forward knowing that that wasn't in the process, because otherwise somebody's walking into Pandora's box.
I went to the Board of Assessors yesterday and it hadn't been done. So,
Paul, I hate to say it, but a lot of surveyors, a lot of owners, especially the acquired property, don't know the property in 61A because it was put in so long ago and they never thought about it, and they never realized the restrictions it imposed.
But to answer your question, Cindy, I did confirm to her that that parcel was, approved.
Right. I just hope that Pandora's box doesn't bounce back on her if, she tells the bank the A&R was approved. That's correct.
I would expect that would be Miss Canton's problem as well.
Yeah.
Because she's the one that subdivided the land.
So I don't want to take on something that's not my responsibility. I don't know.
I don't, and I don't need any more.
I know you don't. Yeah. All right. I think I'm going to email. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I mean, just let it go.
If it were me, and since they reached out to you, I would probably send an email saying you might want to be sure that the property has been released from Chapter 61A.
Nobody reached out to me. I am just remembering the email that came from a member of the Board of Assessors in September.
I will email, because I just sent that letter out this afternoon, and I will contact that individual and remind her of that.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. And the final thing and this is a report from the CPC, which the meeting was held just prior to this meeting. I'm the planning board rep on CPC, and there's going to be something on the special town meeting regarding utilizing $100,000 of CPC money. We're looking for, obviously, a town vote that would allow our town to provide the match for the Mass Trails grant for the design of the rail trail, specifically. Sorry, I'm saying this wrong. The acquisition of the land on the rail trail, which goes from the Easthampton line to the other end of Sheldon, stops at Route 10. Anybody that's been in town for a while know this has been a long time coming. And then the state has earmarked $6 million for us to be able to build that, but is in fiscal year 26. So CPC voted in favor of having this be on the warrant, the $100,000 match. There's already been 2 or 3 different grants that our grant committee has gotten approval for towards the acquisition of this property, not the design of the rail trail. I was wrong about that. And that affects the Manhan Meadows Sanctuary. Anybody familiar with that? Just go north toward the brand new bridge on the right, and there's a beautiful conservation area that's been closed for a few years, but they've redesigned that property so that if anyone ever walked there before, it was quite steep when you went down from East Street. Now, the plan is that you walk next to the railroad banking there and then enter it, further down. So there's no steep climbing decline, but that it's still closed because we don't own that property yet. Hopefully it'll be closed on by the end of December this year, and the town will own it at that point. Okay. So that's good news. And I think somebody on the planning board asked what's going on with the College Highway property that was approved in the May town meeting, that the housing authority is, wanted to see some affordable housing built on. That's way down on the southern end of our town on College Highway. Does anybody remember that? I can't remember who asked me the question, but there's going to be the town is going to take ownership of that probably in the next week and a half or so. It's scheduled for closing on November 14th. So that's pretty exciting. And then it'll go from there in terms of building some affordable housing somehow.
Thank
Briefly, I just wanted to mention also a special town meeting. There should be on the warrant a proposed bylaw for a housing trust.
Oh, right.
Yes. I know that's something this board has discussed. And so if we can get that pushed forward, then we can have a housing trust to start utilizing those CPC funds.
Great.
Cool.
Anything else?
Did they vote on my sign?
Yes, Dan. Where were you? We were looking for you.
Well, it was a communication thing. Because Virginia said she was going to send me a message when the meeting was going to happen, but she didn't. So I didn't know there was a meeting.
Well, Randall was able to speak to it, and yes, that was approved. The second sign for the Kona Park, right?
Yeah. So the Parks Commission.
Yep. So that's got to be voted on town meeting also. That was good.
Thanks.
More than you asked for, because we were a little worried about.
Yeah, I think the quote's almost 6 months old now. So good idea.
And we rounded it out to $3,000.
Thank you.
All right, if no one has any other business, I will sign off here. Just a reminder, we are meeting on the 16th, and Paul and Cindy, when you watch the meeting for the solar, that was the first up on the meeting. I don't know if you covered that too, the stormwater for Red Barn storage. Did you happen to cover that too? Because if you want to partake in that discussion on the 16th, if you plan to be at the meeting.
I'm not able to be there on the 16th. I'm terribly sorry.
Okay. And if you are, Paul, then just view that part of it. Otherwise, the three of us will have to act on it.
I don't see any conflicts for that evening. That thought. Let me check my schedule.
All right. But otherwise, Sarah and Dan, if the three of us definitely have to be there so we can see that through. And Richard, I told you that BHP had the plan, and you probably I'll be forwarding that to you I'm assuming this week. John's pretty punctual.
Okay. Who's doing the review?
Yes.
Who is doing the review at BHP?
BHP, John Furman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul, one note quick on personal news. I know I'd mentioned this to Paul, and Cindy knows I'm going to be moving in the next 2 months or so. So I'll definitely be on the 16th. And to be honest, I'm not sure exactly my timeline, but I just wanted to let everyone know.
Are you moving out of the town?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay. Kind of news. If I was just moving.
That's the important part.
Yeah, no, unfortunately. So I just want to. I guess.
I thought Well, that's sad to hear you're leaving, but I thought Southampton was like Hotel California. You know.
Thanks.
Leave or something like that.
Yeah, you just come, you never leave.
Yes.
No, it's exactly what I said to Sarah. Sad for us. I'm happy for she and her family, but sad for us.
I'm really happy for Sarah and her family, but I also think we need to find good people like Sarah and Dan, who've recently joined us. So if anyone knows of anyone that could be a select board appointment in the interim until the next, vote, next election. I'm really sad.
All right, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Sarah, seconded by Cindy. All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, Paul. You did a great job tonight, Paul Demon. Honestly.
Good job.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.